Hi, I'm Jen Gaster from HR Heads, and today I am really excited to welcome Alison Craig to join me for a little bite-sized session around leadership development. Alison, welcome.
Thank you.
You'll find details from Alison's business, AlisonCraigCoaching.co.uk. You can have a little muse around on LinkedIn and find her there. But fundamentally, Alison and I go back a long way. Alison was my coach when I went through my coaching qualification, and she's generally been a bit of a guiding light for me whenever I've got people issues or wherever I need help and support in that leadership space. So Alison, I'm really grateful for you taking the time today. And I know you specifically want to talk to us about leadership development. And I think the last year has been, the word's unprecedented, isn't it? But it's been incredible and very difficult in so many ways. Why do you think it's really important now to focus on developing our people managers?
I think it's really important to acknowledge how hard it has been for people managers over the past year. I think personally and professionally, it's been really, really tough. Managers have been going through all of this themselves with their own concerns, with their own practical difficulties, as well as needing to support their team through that. And in fact, this change was completely enforced. We had no choice over it. And every time we thought we knew what was coming next, the goalposts moved. So it's been incredibly difficult, and partly because every single person has gone through it slightly differently. They've had a different experience. And again, we couldn't control that. So I think the timing is right to support managers with their leadership skills, not only because they've been through a really, really tough time, but because actually that's not going away. Going forwards, we are still going to have trickiness to face. And we know that even in the best of times, line managers, their skills, their leadership is critical to creating the climate that we need in organisations, a climate where people feel fully engaged and where they're able to perform at their best. We need that from a business perspective, but we also need it just from a humanity and community.
It is that human level, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's both. We need both of those things. And I think in the past, we actually have often led by osmosis. So when everybody was in the same location, as line managers, we relied on them picking up information from other people, or maybe overhearing us say something to somebody else. And that worked pretty well quite a lot of the time for many of our team. But obviously over the last year, that's been hugely exposed as not necessarily the best way to go forwards, because people are working remotely. And actually, we've had to be much more intentional about our leadership. So really giving a lot more thought to how we interact with our team, how we check in on them. So we can no longer rely on seeing Jamie in the office and thinking they don't look quite right today. We have to actually check in intentionally, regularly with people. We have to check understanding better to make sure that they are clear on where we're heading, and to check what questions they have, what concerns they have, how confident are they about that. And then we've still got this issue around everybody will have had a different experience across the whole of this pandemic. So some people were furloughed, some people were at risk of redundancy, even if they've ended up staying. There's so many different issues to take into account in terms of how people are feeling as we start to come out the other side of this. And it's our job as line managers to pull everyone back together, even if they're in different locations, to make sure that we don't have silo working, to make sure we're inclusive, to make sure we get that diversity of thinking that we really should invite across our teams to get the best solutions, the best decisions, the best outcomes going forward. So, you can probably tell I could talk about this for a very long time, but I think more than ever, it's so important that we support our line managers with how to get the best, not only out of themselves, but out of their team, and also out of all of the people around them. So how they interact with peers. So at all levels, how they're approaching it, not to get hung up about it, because there's probably a lot of things they're doing really well, but to be given the space and the support to look at that and to think about, right, how could I get it even better? What do I want to hang on to? But how could I get it even better? So
I think there's a couple of things there that you've said that really resonate with me. So we've got 4 brand new joiners to our business right now. And everyone, not just new joiners, but they put their game face on, ready for a Zoom call or a Teams call or whatever, because it's scheduled. So you're right, you miss that Jamie in the office just having a bit of a low moment, because actually everyone gets almost like, ready for the Zoom call and I'm all good to go. And actually, I think the opportunity then to really temperature check is lost. And I think that's something that managers need to find a way to do without perhaps having it all really prescriptly set out. So I think there's lots there that resonates.
And I think, sorry, just thinking of what you just said about the temperature check, I think that is so important, because actually at the moment, I mean, you'll know this from your business, but at the moment, people are or have been worried about their jobs. So they are staying in jobs because they know they want employment. But actually, we don't want people just to stay because they're worried they wouldn't have a job otherwise. We want people to stay because they are fully engaged. And so that temperature check, being able to know whether people are truly engaged and on board, is incredibly important. I also think that there's this opportunity now for managers to think about, what do they want it to be like going forwards? I've had some business owners say to me, I don't want to go back to how we were before. I want things to be different in the team. I've noticed that some of the team are owning things more. There's more autonomy there. And I don't want to lose that when we go back to kind of how it was before, in terms of we're all in the same office again.
And that's really capturing that diversity of thinking that you referred to, because giving them the freedom to sort of just step out of the box that maybe they occupied. And I think that's just invaluable if we can really learn how to capture it.
Yes, and keep going with it. Don't go backwards now.
So to get all of this into play, I know that you have put together a Leadership Essentials program. So who would ideally that be for, and how will it benefit them specifically?
Okay. So in terms of who it's for, it's anybody who's a line manager. So they've got a team, whether that's only one person or 80 people, it doesn't matter, but they do need to be a line manager, they need to have a team. The whole point of it is to help them feel as confident and effective in the people management side of their role as they do in the technical side. A lot of managers that we work with say to me, oh, well, I'm kind of self-taught, I had a great manager and I liked this that they did, but actually I don't really know what to do with that bit. I don't have loads of tools in my toolkit. So it could be that they've been a line manager for a long time, but never had any kind of support or training or coaching around looking at how effective what they're doing is. Or it could be they've been promoted because they're brilliant at the day job. So the technical piece is fabulous. And then again, they've had no support yet around how they can tweak their style to get the best out of every individual. Because we know that that's what it's about, isn't it? If we're going to have this inclusive environment, we need to be able to tap into each of the individuals that are. And it's
that second scenario that I see time and time again as a recruiter, as to the reason someone's leaving. Because they feel like they're in a boat with all this responsibility for driving it and they have no support into how to do that.
Yes.
And I think people are really time poor doing the day job and are measured on the day job, that often that leadership piece, that team leadership piece is thought of as secondary. And yet, if you can get that right, it should enable, it should facilitate such a better way of working.
Yes, and because, there's such a massive risk, isn't there? If the line manager ends up doing it all themselves or taking it all on themselves because they don't really know how to get people on board or to get the best out of each of their team, huge risk to the business if they fall over or if they win the lottery and leave. So actually we've got to get this right. We've got to drive our businesses and organizations forward through our people. And that's where this comes in. The whole benefit from my perspective of this program is helping managers know how to get the best out of other people as well as themselves. So it's an opportunity for them to stop and think about what's going well, what could be better, and what to actually do about that. Because often I think managers know it's not quite right, but they don't know what to, how to.
They don't know any different.
Release that behavior. What do they do instead?
Yeah.
So that's what we help them with. So I myself have got more than 30 years experience of leading teams, worked with hundreds and hundreds of managers over the last 20 years.
And generally brilliant managers. I mean, your background is John Lewis. So, the caliber is superb to start with.
so lucky, so lucky in terms of who I've been able to work with, but equally back in my John Lewis days, the support I had around how to get the best out of people. So the idea with the program is to share some of that best practice and theory, but absolutely to get each person on the program to think about how they can apply that in their situation. So it's very practical. For me, that's so important, that people go away, know what they're going to do with this best practice and theory. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. So
how will it work? How will they come into
Okay.
you and sort of get that sense of practical advice and guidance to step away with?
Yeah, good question. Okay, so the way the program works is it runs over 6 months. There are 10 half-day sessions, which are online via Zoom, but fully interactive. Okay, so we replicate being in the room as much as is possible, but without the expense or the time spent traveling. So generally speaking, I mean, there's so much in the program. People say to me that it's exactly what they want and more, which is lovely to hear, because we've got quite a lot of research into what should go into it. But we share some best practice or theory and then immediately move into, right, so how would that apply for you? Now take some time to talk together about how would this work, so that they've got the opportunity to come back to me within the session and say, Alison, it wouldn't, I just don't know how I would do that. So I can support them with, think about this, think about that. So in your situation, what you could do is this. And that's what I mean about it being really practical.
Yeah.
And before every session, they reflect on how they've got on. So what are their successes? What are their challenges? So that, again, we can talk about those and move it forward if they've struggled.
So it's real life scenario, real
absolutely.
Situational. I'm stuck with this person and doing this, and how do I resolve it?
Yeah, absolutely. And each person gets a 1-to-1 30-minute coaching session with me at the beginning of the program to establish what are their personal objectives for the program and how will they make sure they get return on investment from coming along to this program over the 6 months. It can be run in-house. So if a company has got enough people to fill it, at least 6 people, we can run it in-house purely for that company. But what I'm really excited about is the open program, because for the first time, we feel able to give access, if you like, to people either who want to put themselves forward. So a manager out there who would love to get support themselves and fund it themselves, or organizations where maybe they've only got 1 or 2 people who need it. They haven't got enough people to fill the whole group. And this will allow access.
And they can still access it.
More.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about that, because it's not often you can get that sort of support, actually.
And I think that shared learning environment for me, having been on courses with you, it's just a brilliant way to see a different perspective. Sometimes you don't get that when you're doing an in-house course. So
yes.
I think there's some benefit there.
Yes, I agree. And great networking opportunity as well, actually, for you and your business.
Yeah.
So lots of pros for the open program, actually.
Okay. So what do people need to do if they either want to find out more? And I will just reference something at the end that we've got in plan for May, but specifically about your leadership effectiveness course. How do they approach you, contact you, register, sign up, do whatever?
Yeah, good question. So I know that we're going to put my contact details on here, which is great. So people should feel free to contact me whichever way they feel most comfortable with. So if they'd rather email, that's fine. If they want to message on LinkedIn, that's fine. If they want to pick up the phone to me, that's absolutely fine. Really happy to chat with anybody who just thinks it might be of interest, either for them themselves or for one of their team. There's a flyer, which is totally upfront in terms of costing and the broad content. But again, I can give more detail about the content if that's what people need. So I think the main thing is just kind of get in touch in whichever way suits you best, and I'll happily help.
Great. And I alluded to an event. You've really kindly, not only are you doing this with me today, but really kindly agreed to be our guest expert speaker at our HR forum, which we're going to host in May. That, guys, will be on Thursday, the 27th of May at 11 o'clock. And Alison will give us a little bit more insight into leadership challenges, leadership program for our people management capability. And as always, we'll have a Q&A session at the end of that again, Alison can sort of give some practical and pragmatic tips around current scenarios and real life situations.
I look forward to that.
Good. So if anyone wants to please contact Alison, all the details will be below this and you'll be able to connect with her directly. Equally, if you've got any problems on that, come back to me and I'll put you guys in touch. Alison, I'd like to thank you for your time and that insight. Look forward to seeing you properly again in May, and fingers crossed for this successful course.
Thank you, Jen. Brilliant to talk to you. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Take care.